Dooku's war chest is up for grabs. Omega wants to prove her worth to the team. Wrecker finds a new weapon and more as the Sky Guys are back to recap the Season 2 premiere of The Bad Batch.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sky Guys podcast. Happy New Year. You're kicking off 2023 in style with a new season of Star Wars content. The Bad Batch Season 2. First two episodes dropped today. Spoils of War and Ruins of War. So we're going to talk about both of them on this podcast today. One of the hosts, Mike Phillips. Join me today, as always, the voice you hear on the podcast every single week. Pete Consadori is here. Pete, how are you?
Doing well. Happy New Year, guys. Hope you guys had a great holiday. For everyone listening, hope you had a good holiday. We are back, like Mike said, to talk about the Bad Batch in the new year. Happy to talk a little bit more Star Wars with you guys with the new show, or new season of a show. That'll pretty much run us into Mandalorian, right? Smack dab in the middle of this season, Mandalorian comes out. So we'll have a busy March, April, and May possibly, right?
Yeah, we're going to be a lot of double dipping with Mando coming up over the next couple of months. So,
yeah. Excited to talk Star Wars with you guys again.
Yep. Also with us today, the Vice Admiral of this podcast, Nick Fraietta, is here. Nick, how are you?
Doing great. Happy New Year. And decided to do our first ever, because we weren't together during the first season of Mandalorian and kind of came together during the second, but our second season of a show. So the show that we talked about already in previous episodes with the first season. And we didn't do episode by episode. I don't know what we did, but I think we just kind of touched on it when we were going through the Clone Wars and Rebels, but good to, have something to compare it to when it comes to the standards of the show.
Absolutely here. And Pete, start off a new year right here. We'll remind everybody here, they want to subscribe to the podcast. Feel free to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, all the suspects. You follow us on Justice and the Suffering here. None of this Bad Batch stuff is going in that feed. It's all just for you guys on the Sky Guys. Make sure you're signed up if you want to get all the Bad Batch coverage.
Yeah. Some New Year's resolutions are to go to the gym more. Some are try to get a new job or whatever the case may be. I think your New Year's resolution should be subscribing to the podcast. I think that should be it if you're not already. So definitely subscribe. We're everywhere. Just make sure that you get the exclusive content like this Bad Batch podcast.
Yeah, and Nick, if you want to follow the Instagram here, how can they do that?
At Sky Guys Podcast on Instagram. You can find us there. And Mike, people want to get in touch with the Twitter. How do they do that?
Yes, I saw last week the Twitter was coming. Twitter is out. It's at same handle at Sky Guys Podcast on Twitter. We'll get clips on the episode up there during the week. I'll be commenting on there. It's our Star Wars news we find on there. So there's a lot of fun stuff on the Twitter account.
That is nice.
Yeah. You also followed my YouTube channel, Mike Phillips on YouTube, the video version of this conversation here, and try to find who's going to show up for this season. I'll just go ahead here and say it, Pete. Ahsoka's coming at some point.
Look at that. First time I lost the mute button in 2023. I'm assuming, right? I mean, we had Captain Rex in the first season. There's got to be something. I mean, Dave Filoni's directing this, right? Or he's a part of this show.
He's the EP.
Right. So I mean, there's gonna be a Ahsoka sighting at some point. There has to be.
Nick, to be fair, Tales of the Jedi kind of implies she kind of is off the grid for a little bit.
Yeah, but maybe hanging with them is off the grid.
Yeah.
We'll find out. These episodes were not directed by Filoni, correct?
No, I don't think they were. I don't think he oversees it. I think he's too busy with the live action stuff.
Because they were the first. He was the first credit, but I don't think it says directed by. I think it says created by.
Yeah, I'll try to look into that here. But we do have some Star Wars news to catch up on from over the break here, and Nick normally does this, but since I was on the Twitter streets, I did collect some of it when I was out there. So I'll start with a couple of things here. It's like, number one, Pete, we're getting some Mandalorian stuff coming here. Like I'm trying to think, who's the guy's name who plays Moff Gideon here? Oh, Giancarlo Esposito.
Yep.
He plays Moff Gideon. He was doing a bunch of press for his new Netflix show Kaleidoscope, and then they asked him about Moff Gideon, and I believe the exact quote he used about him is that he's that all good villains like rise from the ashes, and Moff Gideon will as well. So, Pete, it sounds like we're gonna get a big Moff Gideon role in season 3 of Mando.
So I take it with a grain of salt. I take it as it could be a little bit of an Easter egg hinting and foreshadowing the return of Moff Gideon, or it could be the actor trying to put the seed and put the hint in the directors and producers and showrunners' mind that he wants to come back and have a role in Mandalorian. I wouldn't be unhappy with it, but I would like to see an original villain, someone, with the potential of, maybe I mean, Thrawn obviously is out there. I mean, I know with Ahsoka, that probably will be the main villain there, hopefully. But I like I said, I'm not too thrilled about it, but not too um depressed about the fact that he may come back.
I think he's already confirmed he's coming back. I believe he's already confirmed to be returning. And
Okay.
according to the wiki, he is returning.
I think he is coming back. I was led to believe he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at the Wikipedia list of characters here. They have Pedro Pascal back, and then the first co-star list is Giancarlo Esposito as Moff Gideon.
Watch, it's a flashback.
Well, we'll see there.
It says starring Pedro Pascal as Din Djarin and Grogu as Grogu.
Yes. It's almost like Chopper as himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's thing number one here. Thing number two, Nick, I know you love talking about movie speculation, but there is some rumor going around the internet that the Damon Lindelof Star Wars movie is going to start shooting in April. So that's something we keep an eye on here.
So when originally I usually do the news, as everyone here knows. When I was going to do the news before you had stepped in to do it, I was going to leave this out intentionally because I don't want to hear it. Until I see a tweet or Instagram post or something from either Star Wars, Lucasfilm, or Disney themselves about this, I could not believe it less.
Yeah. All right. So we'll put that. I put it on the yours. I always say, like, I take these as a grain of salt, but put the information out there for the people so they can be aware of these things. And Pete, last thing here, if you were aware of the movement to try and make Solo 2 happen with the fans?
We were talking about it a little bit prior to us recording, and I just, except for like the underground angle with with Mr. Maul, I don't really know what else you could do with a Solo movie. But I mean, almost like what Nick is saying, it's kind of like it's a movement by the fans. I don't think. I mean, you had said Ron Howard is not looking to do another one. I don't know if he's publicly come out and said no, I don't want to do another one, or it's not happening. But we were saying it off the air. I don't think Star Wars has given fans a lot of what they wanted in a very long time.
Yeah, well, this is according to Ron Howard. He was asked about this. He says that Lucasfilm has zero plans for Solo 2. The only discussion I'm aware about a sequel for Solo is coming from the fans at this point. I don't think it's a Lucasfilm priority, which I think, Nick, we pretty much agree with that.
Yeah, I wish it was, but I'm not expecting it.
Yeah. And that's all the news we got for this week here. So let's dive into these episodes here. We got a 2-episode premiere of The Bad Batch here. Spoils of War, Ruins of War, written by Jennifer Corbett, the first episode, Gina Lucida Monreal for the second episode. So general thoughts here, guys, on these 2 episodes we got today.
Fun to see the family back. The Bad Batch family. It's good to see. It's fun to see them back. We talked about this off the air, Mike. We're both thrilled that the beach scene was the first scene. Apparently I predicted that. I don't remember predicting that, but you reminded me that I did predict that.
Yeah, on the season 2 preview podcast that came out last week, you did mention that, like, yeah, I don't know why this crab scene is here. I'm sure it's probably like the first thing we see them in, and then like just whatever's going on after that.
Yep, I remember thinking that. I wasn't sure if I said it, so I guess I'll take your word for it that I said it. And I'm just happy to be back with some. Not that I didn't like Andor. Of course, I loved Andor. Not that I didn't like Obi-Wan Kenobi. I did like that. I didn't love it. I liked it. Not that I didn't like Boba. Actually, it's going too far. But I'm excited to get more of a less serious show where it's a 20-minute. In today's case, it was a little longer because there were 2 episodes, but a 20-minute show where I can just relax, put the show on, not be so worried about its stakes and how much it means, because it's less of a, I don't know how to explain it, almost like when you play a video game that is not online, it's a story-driven game, so you can sit back instead of having to sit up close like this and get into it. You can sit back and relax.
This is where you can pick the phone up while you're watching the show. You cannot do that with Andor because you miss a line of dialogue. You might miss something very important.
If I pick the phone up, I miss a lot. I find myself rewinding a lot. So not me, but everybody else, yes.
Yeah. Pete, what did you think about what we got in these 2 episodes today?
Yeah, I mean, they were fine. Like Nick had said, it was nice to get back to kind of Clone Wars era kind of show. Seeing the characters that we know, getting reacclimated to the characters with that kind of fun little, crab scene that they had in the beginning of the season. I'm just, I was hoping for a little bit more, and we'll get into it. But it was still, Nick hit every single point. It's a fun kind of just short show that is not so intense mentally, right? You just get to watch and enjoy.
It's a good palate cleanser between Andor and Mando.
Yeah, this is something.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me worry that it's going to fall off and not actually gain traction when Mando starts.
Although, I mean, from what I've been gathering, it sounds like everybody who's seen this show has said that this is that the best of Clone Wars comes out in this season here. Like, I hope it gets there because these 2 episodes, I mean, were fine. It felt to me like sort of like, like you could throw this episode like in the middle of season 2 of Clone Wars, or it just fit right in terms of like it's fine, but it's not like a knock your socks off.
Perhaps I'm going to go on a limb and say that whatever episode number it is that comes out on March 1st will be the best episode of the show. And if it's not, they did something wrong.
Episode 11 comes out March 1st.
They should make episode 11 an absolute banger episode, so people will watch it when the see Mando's on, and then say, "Oh wow, this show pretty good,"
Yeah, that episode is called Metamorphosis, by the way. They're coming out one coming out on the 11th on March 1st.
They gotta do that. That would be nice. But just one thing to notice is in that opening beach scene, that animation is like it just keeps getting better. Like the characters are newly animated, they have new models, and it's just like it looks incredible.
Yeah, I do think, Pete, I did notice that too. We could jump right into that opening sequence where we talk about they all are stealing the spice on the planet or whatever, where the crabs are, and they're fighting the crabs, and Omega is getting involved and all this stuff here. Like the animation itself was beautiful. I mean, the crabs all look great. Like the fact that you this stunning view when you first open the show, that big wide shot of the island that they're on, like that was all like top notch stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, technology is getting better every day, and we'll see it. Like even with, I'm sure, Mandalorian season 3, when we take a look at that, we'll probably say, "Wow, this looks, really really good." I think, and I don't know what you guys think. I think I like the old model better. I don't know if it's like the color of their armor, but I just for some reason I kind of like the older models of the characters better than this new season.
I agree and disagree. I like the model of the characters more, but I like their armor more in the old one.
Yeah, I think maybe that's where I'm kind of leaning toward. Maybe it's just the armor color and just the way it looks that it's throwing me off. And maybe that's why I'm like kind of bundling it into the whole character model. But yeah,
it's brighter.
Yeah, because they went from the dark red to like the brighter orange is their thing. Is obviously is an in-universe reason for it, because it's sort of like they're trying to go more incognito because now the Empire thinks they're dead as the start of the season here. So like I think that's my next question to you, Nick. Like, do you like the new look?
Of their stuff, I mean, it doesn't look as cool, but I get it story-wise.
Yeah.
Similar to Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't look as cool when he's older than he did when he was in the Clone Wars and all that, but makes sense for the story. He was kind of in hiding. Although he kind of just wore his Jedi scrubs, I guess.
Yeah. Pete, anything jump out for you from this big action sequence at the beginning here before we get back to Sid's?
No, I mean, it seemed like typical Bad Batch, kind of seemed on par and kind of on brand for them.
Yeah.
One thing that jumped out to me was Omega's weapon is, but she's used that before, correct?
Yeah, she got it, I think, towards the end of the first season.
Yeah, but the Night Sisters heavily use those.
Yeah.
So that could be some sort of tie-in or some sort of Easter egg.
Yeah. Could be an Easter egg. I did also felt like this is not another thing of sort of like, this is one of the things they talk about in the preview, Pete, in terms of like Omega like being asked to stay on the ship where she's basically fishing while they're going out there, and then she's getting herself involved anyway.
Again, on brand. We'll talk about it a little bit too toward the end when we rank or talk about the overall thoughts of the episodes as well. But I really hope that this season picks up a bit.
Yeah, I hope it does too. And Nick, we'll kind of skip ahead a little bit. We'll go to Sid's place where like they go back, they drop their goods off, and then you happy to see our good droid, our buddy AZ-13, the droid, just sort of now working at Sid's place.
I was. It was good to see. No, really nothing else to say. It was nice to see though.
Yeah, he's still floating around here. And Pete, were you surprised when we go back to Sid's office that we get the this character Fee Genoa, who's voiced by Wanda Sykes?
Yeah, I mean, I first thing when she said pirate, the first thing I thought was Hondo.
Yeah.
But I was disappointed that the very first thing we see is not very first thing, but within the first 5 minutes, we do see Sid, and it's the same old crap. You know, you have another job. The job to end all jobs, but that's never the case.
No, it's not the case here. And Nick, what do you think of getting Wanda Sykes into the show? Like,
it was interesting.
Yeah,
I definitely picked up on the voice instantly. I was like, that Wanda Sykes.
Yeah,
and it was. But let's say it's Pete. When I heard Pirate, first thing that came to mind was Hondo, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Hondo now.
Yeah,
I think maybe not in the next episode, but I would definitely put my money on the Hondo tracker being higher than 18 at the end of the season.
Yeah, I will say the one funny thing that Pete from the Wanda Sykes character here was like when she was sizing up all the clones, like, oh, these are your guys, they all suck, they're all boring, and then like she's tech like, oh, like you're handsome. I thought like that actually got a laugh at me.
I mean, hey, more power to Tech, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Nick, I didn't know Tech had game.
He doesn't. That's the thing. He doesn't. He's just sitting there.
Yeah.
The character is all about it for some reason, and it's a kid's show. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Family show, I should say, not kid's show. We're watching it. So.
I think as we get further into the episodes, we'll discuss at the end that this show is going to drastically steer away from the child audience this season.
Yeah, I would hope so.
But we will continue, and we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, and we find out that Nick, the mission, the second mission of the episode, this was the first one here, was them stealing the stuff on the crab planets. They found out that Fee Genoa has a job for them, and they're going to go to Serenno and steal some of the payload, steal some of the war chests from Count Dooku's castle. So, did this get you excited when you heard this was the mission they were going on?
Very.
Yeah.
Very excited. That's awesome.
Yeah. I
was not disappointed either. It was so cool to see that throne room again when we got there, but I don't know if throne room, but you know what I meant, his headquartered room.
Yeah.
I was very excited to hear that, and I think it's not a coincidence. I actually think, I'm going to go on a limb and say this, could be wrong, we'll never know, that this show was delayed on purpose to air after Tales of the Jedi, because it made make so much more sense.
The whole Dooku angle of it?
Yes.
Yeah, Pete, like, what do you think about the fact that we actually get to go now to Serenno for the rest of the episode, where we get to see Dooku's planet, see what's come of it here, and like sort of see the Bad Batch sort of work to try and outsmart the Imperial contingent to try and get this payload?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, that's the best part of the two episodes, is that we're pretty much in Count Dooku's old stomping grounds, if you will. It was definitely cool to see. It was a great callback. I agree with Nick. It makes this show a lot more. It makes a lot more sense that they would give a callback to Dooku after doing Tales of the Jedi. But I could see it working without Tales of the Jedi, but it was just probably a smarter move to do it after.
Yeah, and Nick, did you like the fact that like we had some debate on essentially where like Hunter didn't want to do it because they're, hey, we're trying to like maintain our cover low, like maintain our like incognitos because the Empire thinks we're dead, and then we see like this is a big plot point. Echoes right there, so it's like, hey, we got to do more. We can't just like sit back and like just go job to job. We have to try and have a bigger purpose here.
Yeah, that's a direct reference to Andor.
Yeah,
what Echo is saying, because Echoes realizes that you can't just hide from the Empire. Eventually, they're going to get strong enough. They're going to find you. We've seen it with Andor himself when they did the heist on Aldhani, and then he went to go hide on the beach planet. Now, it kind of was his own fault that he got caught, but you know what I mean? Like, eventually they found him, right?
Yep.
Obi-Wan Kenobi went to Tatooine. They found him. He hid Luke on Tatooine. They pretty much found him, right?
Yep.
You can't hide from the Empire. You got to do something about it, and I think that was awesome about Echo and that spot there, and I agreed with him there. And I think that Hunter quickly realizes if we want to, because Hunter's whole thing is I want to protect Omega, and I think he realizes if we want to protect her, this is actually how we do it.
Yeah, he gets thrown around to because I think they point out to him, Pete, is like, hey, you know what, like, we get enough money, we can just sort of like, do the Andor strategy. Like, we're just gonna go like live on a beach somewhere and like raise the kid and not to worry about the Empire coming after us.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yeah,
I don't know much more to say to it, but yeah, I agree.
I think Echo doesn't necessarily. He doesn't believe that the money will keep them safe, but he believes that the money. Let's say they have a 10% chance to be safe. The money gives them a 40% chance to be safe.
Yes.
So not necessarily that this solves all our problems, but it helps.
It does help here. That's what convinced them to go on this mission here. And Pete, we end up seeing that the big battle plan when they land on Serenno is, okay, Hunter's going to create distractions. He's going to survey because this is manned by a whole clone garrison led by Captain Wilco, who is the main clone we sort of deal with in the episode on the Empire side. No Crosshair in this episode at all. So we see this going on. He says, "I'm going to go out be a distractional scout, and then you guys are going to go into one of the big crates and sort of steal as much as you can from here." So, like, in terms of the plan here, did this work? Did you think this was logical here to have Hunter be the distraction guy?
If it was me, I would say no. I think the distraction guy should be like the weakest link. And in my mind, it's not to say Tech is the weakest link, but when it comes to things that can happen, well, maybe Wrecker because he's the brute, but I think maybe Hunter shouldn't have been the distraction. I think maybe it should have been someone else because I think Hunter would have been more equipped to get out of the situation that they got into. But I mean, we see in the episode that they run into a lot of problems with it.
Yeah, Nick. Basically, what happens here is we're gonna kind of speed through the plot on these episodes. There's obviously not a ton of plot here. Is basically like Wrecker gets his crate, he leaves, and then all of a sudden the door jams, and then like Omega, Tech, and Echo are stuck inside. Hunter, and Wrecker have to get them out. These are the groups start staying for the rest of the 2 episode block here. So, like, did you like the decision to split up the groups this way, story wise?
Yeah, I did. It creates more of a story when you have them all together at the same time. As we've mentioned before, there's too many of them. It's hard to differentiate with them. But when they're split up, even Tech and Echo, who I feel like are the same person, when they're split up and it's only them and Omega, I can see the difference in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, P. I also liked that Omega was with them and not with Hunter. I feel like the whole first season was just tagging along with Hunter. I think it was nice to hear with other members of the team.
Yeah, and I think that split between Hunter and Omega is going to be key in this season. I think there was too much of an emphasis of father-child kind of responsibility there, and I think I'd like to see Omega be more independent in this season. And I think if they kept that bond, or at least kept that dynamic with Hunter always being by her side, she'll be never, as a character, will never be able to break out and do the things that we may see her do in the season.
Yeah, we also get a little bit of like this. We get some extended action sequences where like Hunter and Wrecker are trying to avoid like the troops here, and they're trying to open the crate. They have creating a distraction, getting chased by the clone garrison, whereas like the Omega Tech crew gets like basically brought onto one of the ships in order they have to get off the ship here. But either one of them sequences like really get your attention more.
I was probably more engaged with what was going on the inside of the ship because I feel like they're the ones who had to get off the ship.
Yeah.
But the other guys were just kind of like, wherever you get off, we'll meet you, you know?
Yeah. They have to get back to their own ship. That was basically their job.
Yeah. So their job is a little easier, I feel like.
Although the Hunter Wrecker group did go through Dooku's castle and end up in his like little command center. That was fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Tech and Echo going through the command center would have been cooler because they probably could have picked up some like artifact or something on a computer or something like that could have been information that we didn't know or something, along those lines. I don't think Hunter or Wrecker were going to be capable of doing that. I mean, they could barely get the elevator lift to work. So
they didn't even get it to work. It broke, and then Wrecker just like stomped it to the ground.
Yeah, so I feel like maybe if it was Tech and Echo, maybe we could have gotten a cool little Easter egg or maybe some cool information that would, clear up a plot hole in the Clone Wars or something like that.
Nick, I feel like it was intentional though, not to have the two smart guys in that situation because I feel like there's information there they didn't want that crew finding yet.
Yeah, absolutely, agreed.
Yeah. All right, and then we sort of see that's really the end of part one. Is that there's like the Omega crew basically ends up in a cargo thing and it's flying away, and then we see that they basically like I'll sum up the Hunter Wrecker stuff here. Basically, they run away from. They're trying to draw the clone troops out to get to their ship here. They find some tanks. Hunter takes a laser off on the tank and makes himself a grenade launcher. Pete, I think that's a pretty good summary of the Hunter Wrecker second episode.
Yeah, I think that grenade launcher that he creates is pretty dope.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love what
honestly, it's a little off-brand for Wrecker because I feel like, not to say Wrecker's not capable of making his own things, but it seems like he's more of the brute. Oh, let me use this and throw it at you. And do you have a bigger gun? Let me use it. Not I can create my own bigger gun and then use it. So I think that was a nice little character development point for him.
Yeah, he used to hang out with Tech in between seasons where he's learning how to build things.
You kind of went in and out there, Mike. I didn't hear you. I'm not sure if Nick heard you.
I did not.
I was gonna say maybe in between seasons, hang out with Tech and teach him how to build things.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. And so that's
one more thing I want to mention on episode 1 that I think was a good thing to call out here was I had mentioned earlier that the Tales of the Jedi timing was important, I think. And one of the reasons why I believe is you never expect Dooku, of all people, to be the greedy one to take the money. After we saw Tales of the Jedi, saw that his whole reasoning was of turning against the Jedi and eventually turning to the Separatists and the Sith was because he didn't like the greed and the corruption within the Jedi and the Republic as a whole. And then what did he do? He became extremely greedy and corrupt to the point where he took over his own planet, which you see also in Tales of the Jedi with the senators who were doing things to their own planet. So everything that he tried to be, tried to swear to destroy, he became. And I think that's perfect timing to show us this and have us go to this planet because we just showed us how he did that. You just showed us what he was against, and now you're showing us that he became that.
Yeah, P, I do think it's always interesting, especially we get earlier in the first episode. I sort of touched on this later, but I'll bring it up here. Is like the whole idea when they first land that planet, and like Omega's like, "What happened here?" And then and then they're like, "No, like the Empire like bombarded this planet like to nothingness after after Dooku was killed." So like sort of like seeing again like how Dooku sort of brought on the downfall of his own homeworld.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we'll get to the Omega Tech side here again because Nick, a lot of the second part of the episode is that like Omega, like Tech and Echo sort of realize like, hey, like we can't like worry about getting the payload. We have to get ourselves off the planet. The mission's lost. Like Omega's has overheard the conversation that Tech has earlier with Echo, where like saying like like we sort of screwed our own lives here by picking up this kid. So we find out later she said I had to go help out, but she spends like half of like I need to get the money. I need the jewel. I need the jewels. That was a bit annoying initially.
It was literally ripped out of Indiana Jones.
Yep.
Where they almost got it, dropped it at the last second. It was literally taken directly from Indiana Jones. But yeah, it was a little annoying, but it I think showed that I don't know. Yeah, I guess it was annoying. I don't think it showed anything.
It didn't hear we do see that they end up meeting a guy named Romar, who is a native of Serenno here, and then they end up going back to Romar's place because Tech breaks his leg when they're traveling here. So, like, what'd you think of Romar?
I think he's hiding something. I don't know if I completely trust that character. I don't know. It just feels so random to introduce this character and start to having him give the whole backstory of the planet, and then that's it. We don't see him again. So I feel like this is some character that is going to return, and I just have a funny feeling I shouldn't trust him. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, could you get that read off of Romar when we met him?
No, I think the point of Romar was to show our clones, our characters, and ourselves as viewers, not even as Star Wars fans, just as people, to not be so ignorant and naive. Because you see that Tech, this is a separatist thing. This is a Serrano thing. Serrano existed well before the separatists, and Tech was like blown away by that. It wasn't like some political disagreement. It was like, oh wow, I didn't even think of that. There was a time before this war.
Yeah.
And I think that was supposed to open up the clone's mind, first off, and also to open up the viewer's mind to say that if you have an opinion on something and you're presented with new information, it's okay to change your opinion on something and say, well, I always thought that it's hard to make this up on the spot, but you know what I mean? I always thought that the best football team in the world was the high school down the street because I never knew anything else until I learned what the NFL was. And then I go, oh, wow, there is something better. And it's okay to change your opinion when you're presented with new information.
Yeah. I do think also Peter Romar was trying to teach Omega more about like how to just like enjoy being a kid because that's when he throws in the kaleidoscope and she's like, look at like, oh, Jules. He's like,
she never had that.
He's never had that. He's like, it's a toy. Like, you play with it. Yeah, I saw you liked it when you first saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it was probably a little shock and awe of like you don't know what a toy is, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it again, it like you said, it allows Omega to be a kid for a little bit at least.
Yeah, she is the kid. They do make her a kid here, especially when she runs back and try and get the jewels again. Echo has to go after her. We do get the moment there where like we get expands at the end of the episode where sort of like Echo's like trying to explain her like, like we didn't like it was not a regret for us to go do this. This is reality here. It's not a mistake picking you up here. And she sort of feels like she has to correct the mistake. Nick, what do you think?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you cut out? And I thought that you were talking to Pete, so I wasn't going to interrupt you. But you could repeat it because I thought you were talking to him.
I saw the whole Echo exchange with Omega, where like they talk. Omega feels like she has to like make up for the fact that she's really dragged them down by picking her up and taking her with them.
Oh, I think that she misunderstood the conversation, and I think Echo reassures her of that. He doesn't mean that she's changed their lives for the worse. He just means that their lives have changed so much because of her. He doesn't mean in a negative way, though. That's
Yeah.
what I think. And I think he has to reassure her that.
Yeah, because Pete, she is still only what, like 10, 11 at this point. Like I'm sure she probably didn't get the whole concept what Echo was talking about.
Yeah, and I think at one point they literally say, of course it was the right thing to do, right? I think they actually say that before they have to explain it to Omega as well. So I think it was one of those like typical scenes where the person doesn't get the whole conversation. They leave right when they get offended, but they don't actually hear the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, again, young kid doesn't get the concept of probably just pure conversation and not insulting anyone, and she took it a certain way and felt like she needed to do something to help their lives.
Yeah, she doesn't hear. So that's like one of the two things to take away here. That was one of the big things. Obviously, we know they get off the planet. They don't have any loot with them. They fly away, and then this is the conversation that happens here. And Nick, the last thing of the episode here, we have Captain Wilco, who's leading the clone battalion down there. He runs into our old friend Vice Admiral Rampapart from season 1, and he shows up. He's like, "I want to talk about your report because there's a discrepancy in here." And apparently, the discrepancy is that Wilco reported that, yeah, I recognize the Bad Batch. I see all their armor. This is these guys. And then Rampart's like, no, you didn't. They're dead. You're going to change the report. Wilco says no. And Rampart says, fine, you made a mistake. And just shoots him and kills him and shoots him off the ledge here. So what do you think of the fact now that Rampart is just trying to cover up the fact that the Bad Batch are still alive?
I think that this is what I was talking about when I said the show is going to spin off in a different direction. Either one of two things are happening right here. Either the first thing is clones are disobeying Order 66, which, by the way, Cody says in the trailer. So this is definitely what's going to be happening. Now, why is the question? Are they disobeying Order 66 for reason A, which is their chips are losing effectiveness and they're learning how to overcome their chip, which maybe we saw with, what was his name again, who just died?
Captain Wilco.
Captain Wilco, which we're seeing with him. Maybe that's what's happening with him while he speaks up. Or B, I'm led to believe that someone either will find the body or see the security recording of what happened, and we have a clone revolution in a way. Remember, we're in the year probably still 18 BBY.
Still 19 according to the show.
Okay, so 19. So yeah, we're still in the same year then that it started. At some point in time between now and at the latest 5 to 10 years from now, there's no more clone troopers and they're stormtroopers. I was always led to believe they just got decommissioned, but what if there's some sort of revolution against the Empire? A rebellion within the Empire?
Yeah, P, I do think it was deliberate to end the episode on this like sequence here. I do think that like Captain Wilco ended up being a martyr in some cases, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I have to agree with Nick. I really hope it's his last point. I think that would be a really cool angle to take it on. And Mike, you kind of cut out there at the last part. Did you were saying something about the captain? I just want to make sure that I hit that point.
I was saying, I think he's becoming a martyr, basically, like Nick said.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I agree with that. But like I said, I really hope Nick's last point is the way they go at it, because I never understood what happened between clone troopers and stormtroopers. So it would be cool if they explained it.
Yeah, I feel like that might be the purpose of this show, Nick, at the end. So I like see like, okay, well, we're losing the majority of the clone troopers. Like, how do these guys survive?
Yeah, in the Legends before 2014, but before they decanonized it, the explanation behind it was throughout time, Palpatine just saw them as really, expendable and expensive, and just said, "All right, well, there's no reason for us to keep spending money on this stuff. Let's just get more people by getting humans and not spend money." But it looks like there might be a different solution in canon or a different transition.
Well, I mean, they did start this last season. Like, Pete, remember, like Crosshair's training a bunch of stormtroopers one of the first episodes.
Yeah, I mean, completely.
Because I mean, Nick, they did talk about it in the episode. I think Rampart himself, it says like, no, this is so expensive to maintain the clones, and they bombed the Camino and make sure nobody else can do it.
I'm talking about like permanently though, because that is a start. I'm talking about like how they really get rid of clones. Like it's my understanding there are 0 clones by the time of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know, but that'd be cool.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add on the episode before we get to the trackers?
No.
Okay. Let's get through our trackers here. I did condense it a little bit in terms of what we're keeping track of here based on what I saw in this episode here. So, Nick, you mentioned the Pirates here. Hondo, 18 appearances overall, stuff, including Galaxy's Edge. But, like, now we got a Pirate the first episode. Macy, I do agree with you. I think we might get him this season.
I would like to see him. That's all I could say.
Okay. Pete, in terms of live action cameos, we not have any yet, but I know we're getting some soon. I know we know that like Palpatine's gonna show up in this based on the trailer. Cody, Bail Organa. There's a lot of potential ways the tracks are hit.
There's definitely a lot of potential. I think we'll have more success in this show than we did Andor. So I feel like these trackers are going to get some motion.
If a character's shown in a trailer and they show up, they still count, right? Because it's not like a character draft.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Next up here, Nick, the planet tracker. We already had 3. Whatever the crab planet was, or Mantell, where Sid's base is, and Serenno. So 3 planets in 2 episodes.
We're gonna hit a lot. We're definitely gonna hit. We're definitely gonna hit more than 20.
Yeah, I would believe so. And no repeats. This is entirely like once the planet's on the board, that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Pete, the Sid missions. We are 2 already. We had the crab mission, and then we had this mission. I'm hoping this does not keep spiking.
This concerns the absolute hell out of me because I literally talked in the preview that I don't want to see this again. So I'm hoping that this is few and far between.
Nick, like, it would be wrong for us to just wish that like Sid gets killed, so they have to actually find another way to survive without her.
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, because she's not adding anything to the show.
Have Cad Bane kill her.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Because I mean, she did talk about this episode that, like, you know, eventually this place not gonna be safe. So like maybe it was a foreshadowing.
Yeah, I like that she's aware of that. Though it kind of reminds me of Andor in a way. How everyone kind of knew they were getting stronger and stronger, and you can't hide forever.
Yeah, because Pete, she does say at one point, you know, the Empire's gonna come here. They're not gonna just like completely ignore us.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. The original air date for Bad Batch, when was that supposed to be?
September.
So during Andor.
Yeah, it was like literally like, it came out a week. Supposed to come out a week.
I wonder if this show mimics what's going on in Andor in the sense that everyone knows the Empire is getting stronger and they know what's coming, and they want it to be redundant, and that's why they pushed it, and they pushed it after Tales of the Jedi so that the whole Dooku thing would make sense as well.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, just like Nick said, I think it's like the Andor angle.
All right. Last up here, we're do the clone track here. And Nick, I think in terms of my sanity here, I'm not going to try and count individual trooper in the battalion here. So I'm going to go with named clones in this one. So I'm getting 2 for each episode Captain Wilco was in. So two clones.
Fine by me.
Because I don't have the time to sort of scrub back and count each individual clone each scene. So
fine by me.
All right. So that's that here. And next up here, we're going to do MVP and LVP of the episodes here. So we're going to do an MVP and LVP here. So I'm going to start with the MVP section here. I'm going to give mine to Romar here. I feel like he was an important character here. He saves Tech's bacon at the end of this and the fight there when Tech gets caught up with the clone trooper to make Romar comes out and saves him. Plus, he teaches some valuable lessons. I feel like he's an important character for the development of these clones, as Nick pointed out here. So I'll go to you next, Pete. Who's your MVP of the week?
I'm going to give it to Wrecker only because I feel like he grew since we saw the group. I feel like everyone else still kind of had like their own personality still kind of set from the last season. Wrecker kind of helps out in a big way like he usually does, but he's resourceful now. He can make his own weapons, it looks like. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Nick, who's your MVP of the week?
I'm giving it to Echo. I think that Echo realizing the whole thing with realizing the hiding from the Empire only makes Omega's life harder in the future. Is a big it's a good thing for him to recognize. And I also feel that in season 1, he had all these thoughts and ideas, but he never really spoke up. And now it seems like they're kind of giving him more of a character. So to me, he won the most in this episode.
All right, let's go the other way. P, who's the LVP of the week?
Sid. It's absolutely Sid. Like you said, it adds nothing to the show. Is the same crap as we saw last season of, oh, we have one more job. This can end it all. Oh, you don't have to work for me again. It's just I'm tired of it. She needs to go.
Nick, LVP for you.
I'm going with his Rampart or Rampapart.
Yeah, Vice Admiral Rampapart.
Yeah, I'm going with him. He got figured out. I can see through him now. I'm ready for him to be our main villain and giving him the LVP for that reason.
All right, I'm gonna give the LVP to actually. I'm trying to think here in terms of this one. Sid's a good ankle, Pete. I do like this. I'm gonna give it to honestly, like I'm gonna give it to Omega because I feel like I get that it's rough for her because she's a kid, but like she did a lot of stupid things that really put the group in trouble this week. So I'm gonna give her the LVP.
I think that's fair.
I mean, not intentionally. She was trying to help, but she did do a lot of dumb things.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, we're in season 2. To me, by this time, we shouldn't be getting this side of Omega. We should be getting a more independent, and I'm helping the team out Omega. I think all that stuff should have happened in season 1, which it kind of already did, getting the group into trouble, being a liability. I think this should have been the season where she comes into her own and she's independent and is not a liability. So
yeah, Mike, I agree too, because that opening scene, it looked like she was going to be a helper when she was using the bow and arrow and this and that. And then as the episode went on, it was like, oh, wait, never mind. She's not.
Yeah, she's not ready for that yet. All right. And last up here, we're going to grade the episode here. And we're going to do our usual scale here of 1 to 10. As Nick points out, like 5 is average. 1 is the worst thing we've ever seen. 10 is the best thing we've ever seen. 10 is better than the prison episode of Andor here. So, Nick, where's Samir Y here for you?
Well, I'm going to give 2 grades. Is that what we're doing here?
That's fine.
I'm going to give episode 1 a 7. I'm going to give episode 2 a 6.
Okay, what's the difference?
I thought they were both pretty good. They didn't jump out at me as the best episodes of this show, or they definitely weren't bad in any way, though, and I enjoyed them.
All right. I'm giving both them 5s. I have episode 1 of 5, episode 2 of 5. Like these were perfectly fine. They were, I think, better than most of season 1, but nothing to the level of like peak Clone Wars or Rebels. So it's a solid, like, this was fine. It was an enjoyable hour. I'm not like rushing back to go rewatch them here. So Pete, how about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be boring and just agree with you, Micah. It's 5s across the board for the 2. Like you said, it's nothing bad. It's nothing great. It was entertaining. It got us back into the show. I need to see improvement though, because it's if it stays at a 5 all season, it's going to be pretty. In my opinion, it's going to be a failure, even though they're average episodes.
Yeah, this is true here. So that's it for this week. Next, we're not going to do predictions on this podcast because who the hell knows an animated show what could happen.
I actually read. I should have mentioned this earlier. I read that a lot of the episodes apparently are not going to really follow a cohesive story.
It's good. That's what I said. It's probably gonna be more like Clone Wars. Like
arcs
and jumps between things. They'll give you the title for next week. Now we're gonna do that every week. Next week, episode 3 is entitled "The Solitary Clone." So all we know, Nick, is the clone drivers are gonna hit again. I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Pete, do you think the solitary clone somebody we know, or do you think it's a brand new clone?
I think it's Crosshair. I think we're gonna get that clone back, and how he's not alone, but he's solitary in the fact that he's not like everyone else.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, it'd be good to get a Crosshair episode. I did miss him this week.
He's got to come back, and like you can't have the Bad Batch without Crosshair. And I feel like if you go 3 or 4 episodes without him, it's like, well, what are you doing? So I'm assuming and I'm hoping it's a Crosshair episode.
I think the answer to this is yes, but D. Bradley Baker does the voice of all of them.
Yes, pretty
good. A lot of them sound very different.
Yeah, he's a very talented voice actor.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and I also remember back in the day, you watched Les the Hidden Temple as a kid. He was Olmec in that show.
I did not watch.
Yeah, so a lot of good stuff from D. Bradley Baker. That's it for us this week. I want to thank you guys for coming on here. Pete, if you want to follow on social media, how can they do that?
At PJ Consadori 29 on Twitter. Doing a lot of retweeting of this show and just, some Rangers stuff happening. Jimmy VC signed pretty much an entry-level contract for 2 years extension, $800,000 AAV. So glad to lock him in for the next 2 years.
All right, Nick, if you want to follow the Instagram one more time, how can I do that?
At Sky Guys Podcast. And Mike, if they want to follow the Twitter?
At Sky Guys Podcast on Twitter.
All right.
So you can also follow me on Twitter individually, mphillips331. It's MPHILIPS331. This week over on the Just on the Suffering podcast, got a Yankee episode there, Nick. I talked to Dan Federico about the Yankee offseason here, so that's going to be some interesting listening.
You don't have to tell me. I already know you did.
Yeah, that one is out right now. We'll do some football stuff later in the week here. We'll be back next week at episode 3 on the Bad Batch. But until then, may the force be with you.